All right. Let's go, man. What a game one. What a game one. Everybody get the fuck in here, man. Get in this fucking live stream. Let's have a talk. Let's have a talk. What a game. What a game. Um we could start off in a bunch of different places. Whew. I'll let the comments decide. I'll let the comments decide what we want to talk about first. Whatever you want to talk about, put in the replies. We could go at it first with whatever you guys want to talk about. What a game, man. What a game. Before we get into all the conversation, I just want to remind everybody that the Strickland does have a Patreon. Numerous tiers. Our $9 tier gets you access to our Discord, where we talk about everything from fucking sunrise to sunset. I don't know what you want to call it. Basketball, football, baseball, wrestling, whatever the hell you want to talk about. It's always active in there. Literally, you could go like not a minute in there without somebody replying to you. So go check that out. That is always a lot of fun being in there during the games, after the games, before the games, for even other stuff coming up like the NFL draft and all that good stuff, which I'll be there talking football with you. Whew. All right. Let's skip the rest of that shit. Let's go right into covering this game. What a fourth quarter, man. Holy fuck. 21-0. 21-0 run. Cam Payne, yeah, first comment to come in about what we wanted to talk about from Wallclad Frazier. Wanted to talk about Cam Payne. Yes, sir. Yeah, Cam Payne. What a spark plug. What an impact he made coming into the game. On the ball with his defense, putting a lot of effort into containing whatever actions they were putting him in. Just playing hard, man. Playing hard, and a lot of those Cam Payne errors that we usually see, right? Maybe some errant passes, some ill-advised shots. You didn't see a lot of them today. And, I guess the one that you might have said was an ill-advised shot, that step back three, he canned it. So came in big. He had a personal 8-0 run, finished with 14 points. Just looking at the box score, what was he? I think he was a plus 23. Yeah, plus 23 in the box score. How many? Did he have any assists? One assist. Yeah, we don't care. Keep getting the shots up. Keep getting them shots up. That's all we care about. 14 points on 7 shots. 1 of 1 from the line. 3 of 5 from 3. He changed this game. He flat out changed this game. I don't think we win this game if he doesn't go on that run. Just totally, this is just the Cam Payne game. Like, that's all there is to it. This is the Cam Payne game. He deserves all his flowers for this one. This is exactly like the game last year in Philly where he went off on us in game 3 and they took that one. Like, just total game changer, energy shifter when he came in. Nothing more that you could say about him. 10 out of 10 from Cam Payne tonight. God, I just went on a fucking 2-minute ramble about Cam Payne with no interruptions. I never thought I'd do that in the fucking playoffs. Jesus Christ. Let's see what else we got. I'll read some of those comments from you, Ace, later on. Chris Bernhard says, the Pistons got pissed on. Imagine acting like that for weeks, yet only getting pieced up by Cam Payne and DPOY candidate Karl Anthony Towns. Man, let's talk about KAT's defense. Let's talk about that, because KAT's defense, he was active tonight. There was still a couple lapses. He let some shooters get open in the first half when they were in that Mitch and KAT lineup. He was at the 4. He let them get up a couple open threes. Very annoying. Tobias, Tim Hardaway, Malik Beasley, they were all hitting. They were all hitting. I wonder what they went from 3 combined in this game. Let me double check that real quick. So Tobias went 4 of 5. Tim Hardaway was 3 of 8. So now we are 7 of 13 total. And then Malik Beasley, 6 of 12 from 3, 20 points total. So between those guys, that's 13 made threes on 25 attempts, which 25 attempts for those three guys, they had 32 attempts total. So 7 attempts coming from every other Detroit Piston. Cade had 4 attempts from 3. He only made 1, which was the bullshit one that he banked in at the end of the fourth quarter. Besides that, 8 of 21 from the field for Cade for 21 points. I mean, I was going to talk about just KAT's defense, but let's include everybody. Let's include everybody. Mikal made life really tough on him in that first half when he was on him a couple times. Cade had him in the post, just about in the middle of the paint. Tough shot. Mikal was contesting him right in his face. Rebound came off the rim short. Mikal's running into the open floor in transition, gets a wide open layup. Great back-to-back plays from Mikal. OG was navigating every screen that they put in front of him. Always in Cade's back pocket, bothering him, making him uncomfortable. Cade lost a dribble a couple times in this game. He never really got right, and I think that's very clearly shown in the box score. 8 of 21 for a guy like him, who's just a supreme scorer. You know, you don't see that too often. And if you take out the banked-in 3 that was really kind of fluky and kind of bullshit, that's 7 of 20 from the field. That's almost 33% for him tonight. So what is there to say about him? KAT forcing multiple steals. KAT and OG both had 4 steals in this game. 4 steals, 2 blocks for both of them. Mikal had 2 blocks tonight. I believe Hart had a block that he made on Cade as well. Everybody was active. And I tweeted this from the Strickland account earlier in the game. I think everybody's effort from the minute, they threw up the ball for the tip, everybody's effort, A+. Everybody just run into the ball. Everybody was looking for any way they could scratch and claw to make a play on the ball. Everybody was looking for every advantage they could create. Fantastic energy from everybody. I think that the scheme still has some stuff to get worked on. I think we're rotating off of Malik Beasley way too much. There's just some guys that you can't let beat you. And Malik is a guy who today 6 of 12 from 3, 50% from the 3-point line. Obviously, that's what 6 of 12 is. God, I'm fucking stupid. Don't help off of him. That is their best shooter. I'd much rather live with a Tim Hardaway open 3 or a Tobias Harris open 3. Malik Beasley is the guy you have to worry about. That is priority number 1 when you're not talking about Cade Cunningham. Malik Beasley does not get helped off of at all. That would be an adjustment for me, first of all. KAT coming up at the level on a lot of those screens where he was up on Cade, forcing a couple steals. Got a steal off of the inbound, just head on a swivel today after the second half for him, I think. Especially in that 21-0 run, a lot of plays being made on the ball from him. This is why all season we yearned and we asked for KAT to be able to switch on to these guys who are on the ball. Like, he's not great at protecting the rim. We all know this. It's not some super unique criticism of KAT. We know he's not the best rim protector, but he can move his feet in a pinch, right? You put him on a guy like Cade, like it says right over there at the bottom of the screen. He was sliding his puppies with Cade, man. His feet were moving. He was beating Cade to the spot. Tied Cade up a couple times. Mikal Bridges got on the floor a couple times. I mean, I'm just going to bounce back and forth a little bit between talking about all these guys. Commendable what we saw tonight. Just really, I think that this was a game where if I was a Pistons fan, we're up, whatever it was, like 8 points in the fourth quarter, a couple minutes in. You've got the role players hitting from 3 in MSG. Cade started to get it rolling a little bit in that fourth quarter, and you just don't even come close to winning this game in the end. Like, yeah, it was an 8-point game, down with like a couple, like 30 seconds left, 45 seconds left, but this game, the Knicks grabbed it by the fucking balls. They totally owned this game when it was time to own this game, and if this doesn't say Knicks in 5, I don't know. Like, granted, that could age really poorly. Maybe it does, but you're telling me in a game where Tim Hardaway, Malik Beasley, and Tobias Harris won 13 of 25 from 3, you didn't even make it close to a single digit game, like still a 10-point loss, doesn't sound great to me if I was a Pistons fan. Aaron Bender says, OG, OG, OG. Yeah. Let's talk about OG a little bit. 10 points in the first quarter. 2 individual 5-0 runs for him. And he carried over some of that playmaking, some of that finishing from the end of the season without Brunson. Really nice move, nice step through off of a low pickup in the first quarter. A couple nice shots from 3 that were created by, I believe it was Jalen who hit him on those kickouts. He's just been hitting on every cylinder, man. He had a buzzer beater as well in the first quarter that it was like a little step back from the elbow from the post. He's just playing with confidence, man. The stroke looks pure right now. He is playing like the idealized version, or like the idealized meshing of OG during the Brunson injury and OG before the Brunson injury. Just in terms of like he's comfortable, he's really picking his spots well. And I think the transition that we ran, like not the transition that we ran, but the opportunities we got in transition today helped him a decent bit, and it helped Josh Hart a lot. Josh Hart's a guy who I think we need to talk about too. I think he went on a 6-0 or an 8-0 run in the fourth quarter, which is getting opportunities at the rim. 13 points all in the second half. That's that's Josh Hart, man. Just beating you down the court, beating you to the boards. I think it was 7 rebounds tonight, 6 assists in addition to 13 points for him. So a nice Josh Hart game in the stat sheet. But Josh Hart, after he got beat backdoor in the second quarter, not many Space Cadet moments for him after that. I thought he did a really good job on the ball when it came to guarding KAT, as did a lot of players on this team tonight. That's a common theme that we're talking about. I thought he did a good job on the ball with KAT, and it is just nice to see him active on defense and, hands up, making plays on the ball. He had the block I mentioned earlier. He had I forgot if it was a steal or a strip on KAT later on, but multiple plays on the ball. There was KAT lost his handle on Hart when Hart switched onto him in that fourth quarter. Got it back, but then less time to run their offense with the shot clock kind of starting to bear down on them and all that stuff. So Josh Hart was active. A lot of flowers to Josh Hart. I've been highly critical of his play throughout the last 40 games or so, if that's what you want to call it. But he showed up big time tonight, especially in that second half. David Goodman, good to see you, buddy. I told all of you Cam Payne was a useful player. Hey, man. He was hot tonight. He was on one from behind 3 tonight. Picked his spots well, and then when he was forced to make those tough shots, like that step back 3 we talked about, he rose to the occasion. He made it. So Cam Payne, great job to you, man. That is the Cam Payne game. Cam Payne could have no other signature moment for the rest of his life as a Knick, and he will be remembered eternally for that one. From John Paracelli, KAT showed up and showed out. Yes, he did, man. Yes, he did. And I love this one that you said right after. You pulled him into the deep end and make him tread water. When the Knicks pulled the Pistons into the deep end in that fourth quarter, they weren't even treading. They were drowning. They were drowning straight up. They were straight up drowning. Yeah. I just love that phrase so much. From Kevin Pierre, didn't think Cade will be shut down like that by KAT meeting him at the level. Hey, I don't want to come on here and be like, and I told you so, because quite frankly, it wasn't really me, right? It was Shaq's, Luca, or Nick's tape, as he is on Twitter, Schwinn, and a lot of other guys who are doing the the scheme talk and all that stuff. So I kind of just piggybacked off of them, but they've been saying that KAT should be playing up at the level on these screens for these big wings or these bigger initiators, because they're not generally going to be quick enough to just blow by him, on a play in play out basis. And KAT was fantastic today. meeting Cade. Active hands, active feet, head on a swivel like we talked about. Just that is the effort that not just from KAT, but from guys 1 through 8 who played today. That is the effort that we really fell in love with last season, and it's been sporadic this season. That's why we haven't, as a fan base, been able to fully commit to this team, because we've seen a group of 8, 9, 10 guys commit every single ounce of what they have to winning these ball games. And that was last year. That was the year before where we beat Cleveland and came short against Miami. So seeing these guys start to play with that amount of fight, that amount of want to, that amount of commitment, this is what endears you to a team. And I hope this team keeps parlaying this stuff into playing hard, keeping up that level of effort, and continuing to win over this fan base. Because that crowd, man, I was watching an MSG, but I heard on ESPN that they had to essentially mute the crowd. I mean, that was fucking electric. That was ridiculous. From the Denver game, watching that, hearing it, and being like, God damn, they're loud in Denver tonight. Then flipping over to MSG, watching on MSG, and recognizing still, this is a whole different level. You had the typical cast of guys in the crowd: Tracy Morgan, Ben Stiller, the list goes on and on. Michael Strahan was in the building. I forgot if they showed him on TV or not, but nothing is like MSG, man. Nothing is like MSG. I mean, the pop for a Cam Payne 3 in the beginning of the fourth quarter to tie the game is ridiculous. Ridiculous. Where else are you getting a pop like that? It's like fucking Stone Cold Steve Austin just came out onto the Garden floor. But no, it's a Cam Payne 3 ball to tie the game. I mean, what a fan base, man. What a fan base. And was it Stan Van Gundy talking about how we're fair weather fans? Go fuck yourself, Stan Van Gundy. What else we got here? What else we got over here? From John. Brunson 34 piece, and he didn't even break a sweat. I wouldn't say that second part. I think he did break a sweat for sure. But what I will say is he was not typical JB. I think we always see JB kind of have to ramp up a little bit, whether it's in the start of the season or kind of getting reacclimated to the level of physicality in the playoffs. That was part of the reason why I think he struggled a bit last season in the first 2 games against Philly. But 34 points. I think the bigger takeaway is that he got to his spots whenever he wanted to. There was nobody stopping him. Dennis Schroeder was just being an annoying little bitch sometimes. He got the 1 block on him and then started acting like he was hot shit. I mean, Dennis Schroeder, don't worry, you'll get toasted enough times in the series to put a fucking some respect on Jalen Brunson's name. Don't worry about it. But no, there's no answer on that team for Jalen Brunson. There won't be for this entire series. Jesus Christ is not appearing out of thin air to play for the Pistons. And I guess it's just their luck that today's Saturday instead of Easter Sunday, because maybe he would if it was tomorrow. But there is no answer for him. There's no answer for KAT. I mean, KAT was taking these guys off the dribble and hitting the most ridiculous fadeaways and touch shots that we've ever seen a Knicks 5-man hit. Some of those were ridiculous, like driving left, putting it up with his right hand as the shot clock expiring. Ridiculous amount of shot making from Karl-Anthony Towns today. And hope Malik Beasley is a little concerned with him now, because you might not be the one guarding him, but he's going to send your ass the fuck home, Malik. Tell your bigs to keep their hands off of him. Stop fouling. I mean, the lack of respect for a team that has been in the playoffs 3 straight years, won 2 series from these guys who just chatted hot shit for no reason. Man, I didn't think this was going to be a sweep. I didn't think this was going to be a 7-game series, though. I thought this was going to be a highly competitive 5 or 6-game series. I want to sweep these guys. And I really do feel like we've taken the best punch that they can give us from their role players. So, let's see. This is a good point, David. Hope we learn that we don't need to help on Cade with OG guarding him. I think OG is more than long enough, to recover whenever Cade beats him by the slightest bit. The wingspan is enough to contest from the rear on jump shots if he wants to. If Cade wants to go up, he can meet him at the summit. I thought KAT did a good job even around the rim tonight. The box outs were a bit sporadic in the first half, but second half I didn't think he gave away anything cheap off of any misses. So I'm a little bit more comfortable with having Cade driving onto KAT if the worst comes to worst, and that's the situation we find ourselves in. From Ashwin, I know Asar Thompson is a great defender, but he played like he had CTE today. Jalen Suggs' level of stupid fouling. I agree with you, and I think that the entire first half for the Pistons was reffed egregiously. The fouls that they let them get away with, I think the most blatant one and the most crazy one was when Malik Beasley made the play on OG in the fast break. And he gets some ball, but he just absolutely raked OG's forearm on that swipe. Not even close to being clean. I think you heard a little bit through the broadcast, too, on MSG. That's where I was listening. No foul call there. I don't know. Maybe it was too loud for them to hear that, and they didn't get to hear that skin-on-skin kind of slap. Or they just didn't have a good angle to see him get OG across the forearm, but that was bad. I thought they were very physical with Brunson, and part of that is Brunson has to adjust. You're not going to get 14 free throws a game. This is, game 52 of the regular season. But there were some no calls that I thought were just whack, and I felt they swallowed the whistle on a lot of plays because the Pistons have whatever reputation they've established of being hard-nosed, quote-unquote, basketball team. But we're hard-nosed too, man, and we fucking show that tonight. So put that in your fucking pipe and smoke it. Aaron Bender says Tobias has always been with us. Dude, he was against us tonight, man, especially in that first half. He cooled off after halftime, but I was scared, bro. I was scared. He hit that pull-up three right before the halftime buzzer and got up to 22 points. I was like, please don't do this shit, man. Imagine being a Sixers fan watching that guy put up 22 first half points against us in game one. They probably hate that guy to no end. David Goodman says Towns just had a better playoff game than Randall ever had. It's a goddamn fact. Goddamn fact. What Towns shot 9 of 10 from the field today. Let's see this again. Towns. Karl-Anthony Towns shot 10 of 14 from the field. 10 of 14, 23 points, 11 boards, 5 assists, 4 steals, 2 blocks, no turnovers. Look at that stat line. Look at that. Man, Karl-Anthony Towns, way to make an impression in the postseason with your new team. From Jordan Bubb. Thank you for the quote, Jordan Bubb. Tom Thibodeau on Jalen coming out of the locker room and taking over. I think he got his cape. Yeah, that's definitely our Superman. That's captain. That's why he is what he is. From Jordan Bubb again. Pistons fans blaming the refs and complaining of Brunson flopping. Pistons fans did a lot of talking on Twitter from what I saw. And I had a couple of them in the mentions of our account when I was tweeting. They were bringing up the champagne stuff and they were laughing at us, and then they got hit in the face with some champagne from Cam. Dude, Cam Payne. Oh, what an effort. I think Stacy should be joining us shortly as well. He told me he'll be on in around 5. So I do want to bring this up from Ace Bouchard. He says the Thompson Twins are overrated. They're just Gerald Green without a jump shot. I understand why you're saying this, but I think they have some nice passing chops to both of their games. And being whatever they are, 6'7", 6'8", they're very switchable, right? They can go onto those super big wings. They can maybe guard fives in a pinch. if they're going to be mostly playing on the perimeter. The biggest thing, though, is they can stick with a guy like Brunson in a pinch. Um, they have really, nice feet, good hips. The I just saw another comment rolling from David talking about the Thompson Twins being a very good band. Um, their defense is legit, man. Their defense is legit. They're very twitchy athletes. They're quick. They're quick jumpers. They're quick to get their second jump as well. So you saw it on that lob where Asar cut baseline, rose up super quick. Deuce couldn't get there in time for the rotation. Got an and one dunk. They're legit athletes in every sense of the word, and the shot needs to come around. There's no doubt about that. But to already impact the game to the level that I thought Asar did, and I believe it's year 2. I thought I was impressed with him. I'm going to be honest. Very impressed with Asar, and the athletic profile is just insane. He's going to continue to grow. I'd be very, very encouraged by him if I was a Pistons fan. What other comments do we have? Neo Schmidt. I hate myself for sometimes doubting Jalen Brunson. There you go, brother. Don't doubt the captain. They put the C on that man's chest for a reason. And what he did tonight, clearly not fully healthy. He went down a couple times. He had that floater that he went down on after Schroeder tried to draw the most egregious charge of all time and just obviously flopped. Went down before Brunson even hit him. Landed a little bit funny on that leg. Then he also had the time where I think it was off of an out-of-bounds play. He tweaked his ankle a little bit, kind of crumbled, and went down after that. He hit the deck a lot of times tonight, not just those 2 attempts, but on drives to the basket. He ended up on the floor after taking some bumps. So, very physical game for him. He looked really hobbled about halfway through that third quarter. That's when he went back to the locker room. I don't know what they injected him with, man, whether it was like a horse tranquilizer or some shit, maybe steroids, but different player when he came back out for us in that fourth quarter. I love seeing the hype comments after a nice playoff win. Forgot what this felt like, man. I said to a couple people, forgot what the playoffs felt like. Even though we had it last season, it's just different when you're in it, in the moment, living it, and seeing the crowd pop off after every 3 and all that good stuff. Jordan Bub, playoff games with 30 points and 8 assists. Jalen Brunson, 5. Every other player in the history of the Knicks franchise, 5. Hey, man, we just need one of these. We just need a ring. That's all we need, man. We need a ring. Jalen Brunson will be up there. I mean, probably the greatest Knick of all time once he gets a ring. Jalen Brunson scored 34 points tonight against Detroit. This marks his 12th career 30-point playoff game as a Knick, tied with Willis Reed for the second most all-time in franchise history. That's kind of repeating myself there at the end. I added on that all-time bit, but I mean, this guy he's what, 28, I think? I think Brunson's 28, but I'm going to double check that. 28 years old. I mean, the guy has what, 6 more, 7 more, maybe 8 more? I don't know. I think 8's a little bit too much, but 6 to 7 more playoff runs in him as a Knick. And he's already second all-time in 30-point games. I mean, we're watching the greatest Knick of all time unfold right in front of our eyes as long as he ends up with his ring. From Eshmaster, Cam Payne brings an energy that I'm not sure anyone else on this team has, kind of like what Dante gave us last year. What I'll say about this is not in the same way. Like Dante was that spark plug where you had confidence that it was going to be there, and it was a nice fallback when he gave it to you. Um, but you had some expectation, right? Like Dante's going to hit 4 threes tonight. Dante's going to make some nice plays on the ball tonight where he'll pick off a pass, take it in for a dunk, right? He'll make a nice cut. He'll go loose in the fast break for another layup, and he'll work his way up to like 15, 16, 17 points. But these Cam Payne outbursts are fucking different, man. It feels like in a boxing match, you got your opponent teetering, and then just kind of hit him with like a left hook out of nowhere and knocks him out. Like that's what a Cam Payne scoring burst feels like on the receiving end. That's what I'd imagine it feels like for these teams. Because the Pistons were in this, and the Pistons controlled this game for a long time before Cam Payne got loose. And I'm just he just did what he did, man. He did that crazy. He did the crazy shit that we get mad at sometimes about. But can't complain today. Can't complain today. Stacy, how are we feeling after this game?
Relieved. I think all I'm gonna feel, it's sad because I think the like upside from a series like this, which the Knicks haven't really been in one like this, the upside is relief. We didn't get embarrassed. The downside is embarrassment. So it's a little bit like, you play the Hawks. I guess maybe it felt like that at the time, but that was a pretty even opponent, right? You play the Cavs 2 years later, and that was by net rating, one of the top teams in the league. The Knicks weren't favored. Even the Heat, the Knicks were favored, but it was a seasoned team. And then last year, Philly was a 7 seed. But like, if you told Knicks fans before the series last year, the Sixers have the best player in the series, a lot of Knicks fans would have legitimately agreed, and he's a former MVP.
Yeah.
And then, against Indiana, just had all the injuries. So there was kind of an annoying feeling there. This is a series that feels like the Knicks should win, which for Knicks fans to have entitlement after the last 25 years is something, but that's just the way it is and the way that people are talking about the Knicks. I do want to go back to Cam Payne because I think something felt a little bit different tonight. I really think that in that third quarter, he hit some big threes. He also had some takes to the hole at times when, Brunson is out of the game. This is a good defensive team, the Pistons. And he was finding ways not just to get to the hole and not just to make his floaters, but he's getting layups. I thought that was interesting and a good development.
And one for one of those layups too.
Yeah, it's not as mercurial as Cam Payne is, it's interesting. He is he's a predictable, unpredictable player, if that makes sense. You know what he's gonna do. And he knows what he's going to do. So in that sense, like, it's never like, what is he doing? It's like, this is what he does.
It's more like, is it going to work out this time? And then if it works out this time, what's the chances that it works out again next time? And then you're like always playing these odds with him of like, is he coming through again? Like when we need it? Like again?
Well, I think it's a little bit like rookie Emmanuel Quickley, like early rookie Emmanuel Quickley, where like when he had it going, right, the floater's going, he's pulling up, but it was also like Quickley at that time wasn't getting to the rim much. Mm-hmm. He wasn't able to generate easy shots, and he wasn't, he improved a lot as a playmaker, even over the course of that season. And the defense, no rookies are really good at defense, so. It reminds me of what?
In Tibbs' eyes, especially.
Well, the only one who I think was good as a rookie was Grimes. But even Quickley, who ended up being, especially if you trust advanced stats, one of the best defenders on the Knicks, most impactful, he wasn't good. So it reminds me a little bit of that. But Cam gave you what he needs, and he's a veteran. He knows that, right? He's not. I think there's a power to the fact that they might love for him to become Luka Doncic, or something like that, he knows who he is. He knows that my job is to hunt shots, push the pace, get into the lane. It works out, great. If it doesn't, the coach is not relying on me. That's what he's relying on me to do. So it's good he has that clear role. I'm still trying to process this game because there's so many ways to read into what happened, and there were so many different stanzas to the game. You can read into it a few ways. The Knicks scored 123 points, and I don't feel like their offense was too bothered, right? Even when Brunson was really was struggling in the first half, he was getting good looks for the most part, just missing them, right?
Yeah.
They got sped up a few times. There were some turnover issues. And the Pistons had to take a lot of threes. The Knicks lost the three-point edge to the Pistons. On one hand, you could say that doesn't bode well. On the other hand, you could say the Pistons don't really want to take a lot of threes. The Pistons can point to the fact that nearly all of their threes came from Tobias Harris. They gave Malik Beasley 12 threes. The Pistons will take that any day of the week. And Tim Hardaway Jr., who for all his flaws is a good shooter. So they'll take that, right? So was the game played on the Knicks' terms? In some ways, yes. After I think KAT killed them in the regular season, he was clearly the focal point.
Yeah.
But the Pistons had good. I thought Bickerstaff actually coached a good game on offense. He was running Shamet through 3-4 screens, forcing not only Shamet to get through those screens, but the Knicks to communicate, which has been a weakness. So, I mean, do you think that the game was played on either team's terms, or I'm still trying to get a read on this? I don't know how predictive it is for the rest of the series. That's
I don't think anybody dictated this game in totality. I think there were some runs where either team dictated it a bit more than the other, and the overall scoring talent that the Knicks have, I think, is why our runs influence the game more than their runs. I think when you look at our 20-0 run, in terms of how many stops we got and how many stops they got during their runs, I don't think it was too far off. The difference is every time we got a stop, we either ran down the court in transition and got Hart a layup, which ended up, I think, in that 21-0 run, I think 8 of them were points from Hart. Then,
wait, he scored a touchdown on a 2-point conversion?
Just about, yeah.
21-0, that's a football run right there. So
yeah, 3 touchdowns.
You're a football guy,
We had 3 touchdowns, and Hart had one of them. And then when it wasn't Hart getting loose in transition, like Cam Payne was getting up threes. Brunson was getting to his mid-range spots. Mitch Robinson, I think, had a putback in that.
He had
run.
A few. He had one that got called off on Brunson shouldn't have gotten that call. He stepped on, I don't know if I think it was Schroeder's foot.
Yeah.
Mitch was pretty active today. It clearly made a difference. I think he was a -6 for the game, but I don't think that really captures the impact.
Good that you brought up Mitch because I didn't talk about him much. And I really want to highlight not his box score or anything, but just the fact that he's moving well. He's moving well. He switched onto KAT. He blocked one of KAT's jumpers, right? Very evident that we are a much bigger team than the Pistons. No matter how much they want to play this bad boy, like fucking super hardo angle, we are much bigger than the Pistons. Whether that's with Mitch at the 5, whether that's with KAT at the 5. I mean, we have lineups where it's, Brunson obviously at the 1, but McHale is at the 2, OG's at the 3, with KAT and Mitch out there. And then what are you doing? Like, it's 4 players who are 6'6" or taller with crazy wingspans, who are athletic, who can slide their feet on the perimeter. So they don't have an advantage physically in this series. And Mitch, I think his jumps look quicker. I think he's more confident in himself. His lower body seems to be a bit more sturdy. His screen, whatever.
Bouchard, bigger and girthier. Pause.
Yeah. No. Hey, no. There's no pauses when talking ball. All right. Especially when you're talking balls, there's no pauses. Mitch just looks like he believes in himself, and I hate to say that about like a 7-year vet, but he's confident. I don't think he thinks that he's going to get injured whenever he hits the deck on a play. There's like the loose balls. I think he's going after them with a bit more gusto. I think that
he looked explosive, right? I think people have questioned, is he those putbacks, some of them were just fucking wild.
yeah, I mean, when was the last time we saw Mitch reach back on a putback, like really have that ball, like catching it behind his head, slamming it with force? Like he played great in the postseason last year when he was in the lineup. Wasn't doing that, right? The impact was more him just being gigantic. This is a different level of Mitch. Maybe this is the ideal kind of body composition for him to play like that Mitch who we saw against Cleveland and play like that Mitch who we saw against Philly, but also maintain some of that athletic Mitch from the COVID season, or from Mitch when he was just breaking into the league and he was spitting off of defenders in the fast break and throwing down a dunk. Like that is Mitch Robinson right now. You're seeing, like, I think this might be the highest level he's ever played at.
That's interesting. I don't know if I think that Cleveland series was it. I mean, he dominated. Jared Allen is a great player. Who dominated him. Mobley was a little younger and probably not quite ready for a series at the center positions. It was a favorable matchup. But I do think, like, I think this is the smartest he's ever been. I think the Knicks' biggest problem on this might be a hot take. I don't think the Knicks' biggest problem on defense is Jalen Brunson or Karl Anthony Towns. It is the communication. It is being
Absolutely.
on. And Mitch can be a quarterback on defense. You've seen it in the NFL, but the safeties and linebackers are not necessarily the most physically impactful players, right? It's usually defensive ends, unless you have like a Travis Hunter or a Darrelle Revis. I'm already giving Travis Hunter that, by the way. So I'm really hoping you guys pass on him. But
no, hopefully we get him. Hopefully we get him.
The irony is, if we pass on him, it'll be for the son of the last player who everyone is talking about, Travis Hunter being like. So,
Coach Travis Hunter.
Yeah. But getting back to the game, yeah, I mean, I think Mitch has become really cerebral. Which, look, I do think this playoffs is in some way, every playoffs is, but this one more than any playoffs we've had before is going to be a referendum on Tom Thibodeau. A final referendum, probably not. But this is going to be like, this is, I think, the first playoffs where you talk to Leon and it's like, no, we are heavily evaluating him for how we want to move forward.
Yeah.
In a way that probably wasn't true. Miami, look, you're going against Spoelstra, their seasoned team. There were injuries. Last year there were a million injuries and they weren't really on Tibbs. This is like this is no longer, we're in the show now. And Tibbs deserves a lot of credit for the development of Mitchell Robinson. I've been critical of Tibbs this season. I don't know long-term if he's going to get them a championship, but he's been good at developing players, and Mitch has really transformed. Think about people forget this. Think about the years before Tibbs got here. Mitch was advanced stats were like, when he's on the floor, he's fucking incredible. Can't stay out of foul trouble. He struggled to box out. Now he's one of the better defensive rebounders, or impact-wise defensive rebounders. Didn't always know how to leverage his tools. Now, he never improved his free throws, but he's become if you had told me in his second or third year, Mitchell Robinson's greatest strength will be between the ears. And in some ways it is. That would have been incredible to believe, but I would have struggled to believe it. I think in the first half, all the focus is on KAT and Brunson, and both of them struggled. And I think at halftime, I was saying we had a couple of guys play above their level, right? Tobias Harris had a great first half. OG Anunoby had a great first half. And then the stars played below their level. And both coaches, I think, made adjustments, right? For Detroit's part, they started to, Brunson found more openings. And for the Knicks part, they were putting Mikal Bridges on Harris. Harris was really having his way, so they switched OG onto him. That opened up more opportunities for KAT, and KAT started to get going in that third quarter. So it was an interesting chess match there, moving these pieces around. There's always these trade-offs, right? The trade-offs are just what do you live with? What does the defense want to give you? How do you negotiate that? It's fascinating to me. Like I don't know if you watched the Denver game before that.
I watched bits and pieces of it. Yeah.
At the end, every Denver shot was Russell Westbrook wide open in the corner and taking threes. And it was just like LA is saying, yeah, take them. And Denver's like, I think we can live with that. And, it worked out for them. But you end up in these end games, which like neither team really wants, but that's a whole sidetrack. But I think, if you have to bet on one, OG continue to play at a high level versus Tobias Harris, I think you bet on OG. And I think KAT is going to play better than he did today. But if you have to bet on him versus Brunson, and this is, I think, something people missed coming into the series, it's like KAT has had a great season. This is his first playoff run.
Yeah.
And let's put the card on the table. Like, I think the Knicks are a more talented team. 21-0, a lot of it did feel like this is a young team playing in its first playoff series.
That cracked.
At Madison Square Garden, right? Their best player has never played a playoff series before, as good as he is. And they start the half literally after they start the fourth quarter literally after 3 quarters of playing with a lot of poise, with a 5-second violation and then a shot clock violation, right? And I think Osar didn't even know about the shot clock.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to clown him. We've seen this with the Knicks before, right? We saw the Knicks in their first year with Thibodeau really struggle to adapt to that in a way that they look different. How much will that play a factor going forward? But if you do believe the teams are evenly matched, which I still don't, that is the X factor, and I think that played a role today.
I want to bring this up just because 2 things, actually. I want to bring 2 things up. So far today, in the 3 games that have been played, the team with fewer 3-point attempts has won all 3 games. I want to credit Howard Bunsis on Twitter, who was replying to me during the game on the Strickland account. He said, first 2 games today, the team that took fewer 3-pointers won. And when you brought up the Pistons getting more shots than us, I thought about this tweet. And I think part of what goes into it, this is a little bit different from our game, because I went over it before you got in here. The Pistons, of their 32 3-pointers, they got up 25 of them from Tobias, Malik, and Tim Hardaway. So
that's good for them.
That's
and
great.
They got 12 from Beasley alone.
Yeah.
That, by the way, that's not a win for the Knicks. He went 6 for 12. He's capable of going 6 for 12 every night. So that's not good.
So I think that Pistons part of it is a little bit separate from the Knicks part of things. And that's because I didn't think any 3-pointer that the Knicks took tonight was a bad 3-pointer. I didn't think there was many Josh Hart 3-pointers, right? There was only one, and he made it. But I thought the Knicks process.
OG went 3 for 8. That's what you want him doing. That's 37% on 8 shots. Do that every day.
My complaint would always be KAT needs to get more. I think
KAT took 3. KAT took 3, and Brunson took 5. That's as many as OG took. Combined, they took as many as OG. That can't happen. KAT had the logo 3, which resulted in a putback dunk. He just needs to say fuck it and shoot more.
Yeah.
But I think
especially, sorry to cut you off, but especially on a day like today, where we see him hitting all these tough floaters and runners, right, where you need touch to make these shots, and you need timing, you need that gracefulness that he brings to the table. let it fly, let it rip more. That three he made was off of kind of like elbow extended, free throw line extended, where he just faced up, had a little bit too much space, and he pulled it. No hesitation. So
He
doesn't
always has space,
always.
unless it's if Porzingis is on him. Fine. There's three Porzingis. There's like 3 or 4 Porzingises in the league, and most of that can actually play up close enough. Just shoot the fucking ball, man. Especially when you have it going, because you're in rhythm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he started to in the fourth. I'm not trying to rip KAT, but it was a clear change, even though he only ended up with I think 3 attempts. He had a few buckets, and then during that run, he hit a big 3, which was just that stare the guy down. Oh, you're not gonna guard me? All right, fuck you.
And then, secondly, I wanted to say, can you guess the last 2 Eastern Conference players in the postseason to have more than 20 points, more than 10 rebounds, 5 or more assists, and 5 stocks, so blocks and steals, with 0 turnovers committed in that game?
So hold on, 20 plus points,
20,
5 rebounds.
5 assists, sorry,
Yeah.
10 rebounds, and then more than 5 stocks with 0 turnovers.
Of anyone or just the Knicks?
Anyone in the Eastern Conference.
In the playoffs.
Yes.
LeBron? Giannis?
Nope. It's LeBron and 1 Knicks player tonight.
Oh, OG?
KAT.
He had 5 stocks?
Yeah, KAT had.
He was much more active. There were a lot of deflections that didn't result in steals. He was more active. It's not that he didn't have his bad moments, but
yeah.
Yeah.
KAT, him and LeBron stand alone as the last 2 Eastern Conference players to have at least 20, 10, and 5 with 0 turnovers and 5 stocks. I mean, that's just Karl-Anthony Towns. You get an A+ for today's game. Maybe an A because the first half wasn't fantastic, but yeah.
I thought he was so one. I'll address KAT first. I do want to address the 3-point again. With KAT, I think he came in here, and one of the thing with Julius Randle is no one questioned how great he was in the regular season. The question is when the playoffs, when everyone is scouting you, when you have to make quick decisions, right? I mean, Bob Myers has this clip from the Sloan Sports Analytics Conference where he's talking about the playoffs is where you find out, right? What a guy is made of, right? So he's like, in baseball, in the playoffs, they have scouted you so well. Your own, like if your weakness is a fastball out and away, that's all you're getting, right? And he was, and Paul Pierce was on the panel, so he was like, Paul probably, if he's in the regular season, he comes into the locker room before the game. Who am I guarding? On the playoffs, he knows his weakness. He's left hand. This is what he wants to go to, and all of that. And that's where you really find out, like, how good is your off-speed pitch? How good can you adapt? And we saw that from KAT, right? He had to hit off-balance shots. He had to make quick decisions. He had to be more active on defense, at least enough to tread water. And so that's what we never saw with Randle. It wasn't all his fault. He's playing right now, and his team is doing really well. So maybe he still obviously has a chance to change that narrative. But with KAT, he'd always been considered a playoff dropper. He averaged 18 and 10 for his career coming into this year. Obviously, that improves a little bit tonight. And on 58 true shooting, he was considered a dropper because he was that great in the regular season. But it wasn't like Randle where we'd see this all-star go from all-star to times liability. Getting back to the 3-point point, though, I think people too often look at these attempts and just your own bias frames. Like, you're supposed to take the right kind of shot, quote unquote, right? So on one extreme, you have, these analytics folks like, we're not getting threes. We're not shooting enough threes. Even I just said it, right? Like with KAT, you should just fucking let it fly. On the other hand, it's like when a team is missing open threes, they need to go to the hole more. It's like, well, why are they taking those threes? The other team's packed the paint. it's very dynamic, right? So
Yes.
we often don't get to the next level where it's like, all right, if you're not getting 3-pointers, why aren't you? So the Celtics shoot a ton of threes. What I think the fundamental misunderstanding is they're not just jacking it up. Like, how many great shooters do the Celtics really have? Like really great shooters. They can all shoot. Tatum might be the closest to a great shooter. I don't think he's on the level of Clay
I
or
think
Buddy Hield.
I think Derek White is a borderline great shooter. And then I think Tatum and Porzingis are great shooters. Drew Holiday, I don't think is much more than an average NBA 3-point shooter.
And Brown is a good shooter, right?
Yeah.
And I would disagree, honestly, on Derek White. I think he's a very good shooter. I don't think he's elite. But the point is, they also generate so many good looks. So the 3-pointers, people think it's their philosophy. Their philosophy is to get in the paint, move the ball, and take the shot that's available. And that's the same thing when I see people say, like, they need to stop taking threes and get to the line. The Knicks don't jack threes. So if that's your criticism ever of the Knicks, that doesn't make much sense to me. The criticism should be they're not generating open shots, period. They're not getting layups. They're not, the ball isn't. And so that's the thing, right? You can have a great ball movement offense. The Knicks had this against Indiana last year. The ball moved a lot and they generated a lot of points, and mostly inside the paint. You can also have a great ball movement offense, a versatile offense that can attack you many ways that is very 3-point oriented. If you can do that with 3-pointers, it turns out that might be better. But I think people reduce the shot distribution to it's like the surface, right? But if you're a doctor, if you're a physical therapist, right, you're treating the symptoms, right? My ankle hurts. Well, why is it hurting? What is going on there, right? And I think this is the best analogy because when I sprained my ankle in physical therapy, I wasn't exercising my ankle. I was exercising the muscles around it, right? I was working my glutes on my thighs and everything. So What is the cause? There's so many different components on it. I think the whole 3-point conversation is very reductive in that sense.
So I do think that there's a little bit of a difference with Boston because they can have Tatum drive to the paint, right, off of a ball screen X amount of times a game and not worry about him breaking down, taking some bumps, just because he's 6'9", right? He is whatever you want to call it, 250. And then Brunson is 6'1". So there's naturally a bit more.
But Brunson also does it way more. That's the thing, right? Like Brunson, first of all, I think is a tough motherfucker. So I'd push back on that a little bit.
Yeah.
But two, like Boston is running all of these other actions, right? They're like, if Mikal Bridges was playing the Derek White role, you can argue it wouldn't be as good. I think he'd be doing a lot more though, right? Visibly. He had 8 points tonight on 9 shots. Do I think that's on him? Absolutely. Do I think that the Knicks do a good job of getting everybody involved? They figured out ways to get OG and more involved. And that's really, it's not about some kumbaya like team thing. It is about whether you're the 72 win Bulls, right? Like the Bulls are the best example. People are like, Michael Jordan just wanted it more. That's true. He is the greatest basketball player that ever lived. But they went 6 years before they won. They needed Scottie to get better, but Steve Kerr was playing a big role, right? In certain games. They always had a guy. They always had someone else. Like everyone was a threat in some way. And like just being a threat, giving the defense other things to account for just changes everything. And, when you see a team hit a lot of threes, we're like, oh, they had 3-point shooting luck, or, oh, they jacked up threes. They know the analytics. No, they're making everyone a threat. And you have to pick your poison.
In a sense, I guess.
Or if a team generates a lot of layups too, by the way, it's probably not just because they're making a concerted effort to overpower. It's also because there's just the defense is stretched too thin.
I think that is very I don't want to say like it speaks to the symbiotic nature of offense in sports, because naturally there's a push and pull to defense and offense, right? And you see it in the NFL where things are cyclical, and it's a passing league, but then it's a running league, and then it's a play action league, and then it's a passing league all over again.
And it's RPO, right?
Yeah,
all of the
and then it's RPO, and then it's it's like all these pin and pulls, and then you marry them together, and everybody's playing up on them, and then you do like a double pass in the Super Bowl, like the way the Eagles did. But there is the thing that the takeaway should be, it is always process. And there's times that's why I'm still frustrated with this Knicks offense, because you're scoring 120 points a game. The process is why you struggle against the elite teams. The process is why you can't get those open looks at the basket, like you said, which cause teams to pre-rotate, and then your reads are easier because once you turn the corner and you have somebody on your back hip, you know that Jaylen Brown's defender is going to help out. And then you're one pass away from a corner three from a good shooter. So I agree with you in what I think your overall point was of process still needs to be better. And this is something that I'm going to kind of start the conversation on. This team still doesn't know their offensive identity day in, day out. What do you think about that?
I think they do. It's just very limited.
Like they think their identity is Brunson ISO?
Brunson pick and roll. Often not with KAT, which is maybe the most frustrating part.
Yeah.
But I think it's a very different style, but it comes down to this. This is actually the best argument, right? The Houston Rockets with James Harden took a ton of threes. They ran into some of the same problems as the Knicks when they faced the best teams. That you spread pick and roll with Harden, and he's going to get his, and he's going to generate some open shots for others. But if all they're doing is catch and shoot, they're not in a rhythm to really impact the game. That stuff starts to matter in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, so in terms of process, and I don't think this is, I think, and even Harden, right? Harden was called the selfish player who needs the ball. He has adapted, right? At least like Brunson, we know is capable of playing in a more dynamic style. I mean, you might like, and the flip side of that is if Steph Curry went to, an ISO heavy offense, maybe he would have just been Harden, right? Take all of the, I mean, he probably would have put up insane numbers.
He scored maybe a game if you let him ISO.
Yeah. But and you see this at times in the NFL too, right? Like Justin Jefferson is dynamic because he can line up outside, run a fly route. He can go across the middle. He can be a decoy. You just want to beat, I think in the regular season, it's very linear. Talent wins out. Who's playing harder on a given night wins out. But when you get to the playoffs, everybody, like the cerebral aspect is so big on defense that you just need to be able to attack it in as many ways as possible. And that's, I think, what the Knicks miss a lot more. But, it's hard to argue on a night when they really didn't seem bothered on offense. Brunson mostly got good shots. I thought OG was very active and good, and they got creative ways to get him involved. KAT was awesome. We'll see if the shot making lasts, but I do think it's a little bit frustrating. Hart is his own thing. He marches to his beat of his own drum. First half, very frustrating. Second half, really made some big plays. Where, again, that's another predictable, unpredictable player.
Two of the most Josh Hart isms occurred in this game, where he tried to run down the Tim Hardaway dunk, and then he didn't touch him, and
that was an insane play. Like, I would be so mad if I was Tim Hardaway Jr. I would be, and I get that the rules.
Yeah,
the rules say that that's not a made shot, but it's just a wild play.
And then when Asar Thompson missed his dunk, and then the Knicks are running back in transition, Hart is making a move to the middle of the paint, and he loses the ball, and it's like, fucking, are you serious, dude? Like, really? It just slipped from his hands.
Yeah. I wonder, I actually Breen was like, "What's going on?" I wonder if the ball was just sweaty or something at that point.
Probably,
But like,
yeah.
But I think the lack of like getting more out of Bridges is on him. It is also on the Knicks somehow. And that's not just Tibbs. That's
And it is on McHale.
Yeah, I said, it's first and foremost on him. But
sorry, I thought you meant by him like Brunson, going back to the ISO Brunson thing. Sorry.
No, because I don't think Brunson is like, I think that's just they want, well, and Tibbs, I mean, there's benefits to it, right? Tibbs doesn't want to turn the ball over much. He like in Tibbs's ideal world, you're a great defensive team. You have this great scorer who can get a good shot anytime. You don't turn the ball over. When defenses overreact, you get open threes. And you grind these games out. They're just not that kind of team anymore. They have to win in different ways. They can't rely on being an elite defensive. I don't think any team really can rely on just one end of the floor, period. And look at Oklahoma City, right? They are an elite defensive team. They don't just rely on Shea being great, right? They have all of these counters and all of these things they do. So, but I think if Tibbs had to coach his ideal team, it probably would be Oklahoma City, right? You get the big guard you want, who's like the best version of that. Well, best right now.
Hartenstein back.
Yeah, Hartenstein. All of these switchable defenders and even the smaller guys like Dort are tough. But you got to adapt to the team you have, and even if you are the Thunder, you have to be versatile and be able to you want to reduce variance, but sometimes you need a little variance.
I am going to pat out over here just because I have church. Easter, 12 o'clock. Gotta get ready. Are you gonna stay on?
Yeah, I'll stay on for a bit and go through some. Do you know the last comment you looked through, or
the last comment? I jumped around a bit. I think the last one that I really expanded on was up around where Jordan Bubb spoke on over here where it said highest. Oh no, sorry. Where he said that Jalen Brunson had the second most points of 30. Oh no, it was 30 and 10 for Jalen Brunson 5 times, and then the rest of Knicks history was 5 times. It was around over there. Yeah, right around there.
Right. Yeah, I'll get through some of these comments. Enjoy Easter, spend time with your family. Enjoy 420 if you partake.
I will be enjoying a Knicks win. How special is this 24-hour time period?
Yeah, take care, Con.
All right, bye guys.
$30 points and 8 assists, 5 Jalen Brunson, 5 everyone else in Knicks history. I can think of one that's the most famous game in Knicks history. Wish he was on the call. Wait, never mind. Karl-Anthony Towns in game 1. Yeah, we talked about this. Towns was pretty special. It's definitely good. 4 steals and 2 blocks. I saw the steals and plus 22. There's not much more you could have asked from him besides more threes. And he started to take those, and I think it was very encouraging, at least for this series, because I think coming into the series, there was a question about, Towns has a matchup advantage. Isaiah Stewart is their best defender. He's 6'8". We've seen Towns being able to score on Wemby. He struggled on the other end and got in foul trouble. He should be able to have a lot of success this series. But the question, I think part of it was, is he going to just post up Isaiah Stewart? That's not ideal because Isaiah Stewart's pretty strong. The times he tried that, I think he got, a good whistle. So that helped. But he was attacking, they were playing him very close. The Pistons didn't want to give him threes. And I think he did a good job taking advantage of driving lanes. Still think he can launch more threes, but that was encouraging. Towns had a better playoff game than Randall ever had. David, he's had several in his entire career, even though he has not the best reputation in the playoffs. Low bar, but that was part of the reason they made that trade. Definitely agree on Cam Payne. You know what he's going to bring, which gives them an element of predictability, even with his high variance play. 21-0 run, second longest by the Knicks in a playoff game since PXP started in 96-97. Yeah, I mean, I like I said before, the Knicks really woke up. They started changing. Brunson had started to get into it in the third quarter anyway. Starting to figure out his spots. He got more into it. He started making shots. That was a big part of it. And I think, I don't want to say the Pistons choked, but, they are the less talented team. They're on the road at Madison Square Garden. They've never played a playoff game before, most of them. I think Hardaway has, Beasley has, but, KAT hasn't. Osar Thompson hasn't, and it showed up. 12 career 30 plus point for Brunson. Yeah, I mean, what more can you say at this point? He carried the Knicks in the playoffs last year. For as bad as this was probably not a great Jalen Brunson game in totality. I think he was great in the fourth quarter. He still ended up with 34 and 8 and like 1 or 2 turnovers. And I think his true shooting was like 54-55, which for the playoffs you'll take. I mean, when RJ Barrett was having 55 true shooting in the playoffs, people were running victory laps. So Brunson doing that at that volume, you'll take that. And that's the difference right now between him and KAT. It's why coming to this series, I wouldn't have said KAT is the better player. I think KAT has a lot of potential. KAT, I think his issues, I think, were being surprised that the team, the Knicks, there were Josh Hart had a chase down block where KAT tried to lay it up. He was a little bit more methodical. I don't think it wasn't that he wasn't seeing the floor. He was more methodical in some of his decisions where he needed to have a little more urgency. So I don't think it's like, I think someone compared him to Randall in the chat. I don't think it's that. But I think he's, it's his first playoff game. So that is an advantage for the Knicks. Mitch deserves it all. Kevin Pierre, totally agree. And that is the one kind of X factor where if he continues to build and the Knicks can get past Detroit, that becomes more of an intriguing addition to that Celtics series, even though I don't think it would be enough to really push them. Yeah, Thompson Twins are overrated. They're Gerald Green without a jump shot. You might want to say that about Osar. I definitely don't think that about Amen. I think 6'7" with that playmaking. And speed. I think he is Ben Simmons with more something that Ben Simmons was missing. But I think they both have a lot of potential, and because of their size, the shot is not as big a difference. And I think they're very intuitive on defense. We talked about Cam Payne. I'm not sure it's quite what Dante gave us because he can't just get his shot off with like 3 dudes in his face, and he's not the same kind of athlete. But he can energize you, and he can hit shots. And he can get to the rim a little bit. He can get into dangerous areas. He can make defenses work even with Brunson off the floor. When he doesn't have it, it's disastrous. But for those 10 minutes he gives you or whatever it is, it's a valuable add. Can we run more than one pick and roll involving KAT next game? David, I think you're preaching to the choir. I don't know what it is. KAT isn't the best screener. I think he still, when he screens, like you watch Porzingis screen, he immediately flashes the 3-point line on a hedge. If they switch it, KAT is capable of posting up. And if they are, playing drop, again, space out. That should just be automatic. And it's frustrating for sure that one, after 82 games, they haven't tried it enough to build that chemistry. But 2, it should be very automatic. Just like, we have this insanely good point guard who everyone is focused on. We have one of the best big man shooters ever. and he can post up, and he can drive. It feels very untapped, and it's kind of remarkable the Knicks have still had so much success on offense. Is it possible he's not screening PNR because he sets so many illegal screens? That could be it, but he doesn't need to. That's something that should be easy to coach. Just stay there. You're a big dude. The person you're screening for is very intuitive and very dangerous, and you are. So I don't think that completely explains it, but that could be part of it for sure. Jordan Bub, Tobias Harris, the second half, 3 points. Yeah, the Knicks definitely adjusted to him getting hot. Part of it was they put OG on him more. And then that led to some more Cade success, but the Knicks were better able to handle that. It's a balancing factor. Cade killed them in the regular season. They clearly didn't want to let that happen again. The other guys started getting hot, so they adapted. And ultimately the Pistons couldn't adapt to their adaptations. Only 7 players finished in the 95th percentile or higher in mid-range talent. Yeah, and 3-point shooting talent. Again, I think in the playoffs, this is kind of what we were talking about before. People nothing ever dies. I think a lot of on every side, I work in analytics. When people talk about analytics solving anything from basketball for sure, but to something like financial markets where everyone is constantly, there is no solution, right? We humans exist because there was no solution to the evolution problem. And in 100,000 years from now, we won't exist the same way. Hopefully some element of us will be around. I don't know where that's headed, but the point is evolution is constant. And, a few years ago, people were saying the offensive big is dead. And you can say Jokic and Wembanyama are generational players, but look at a guy like Alper and Şengün. That archetype was thought to be, that's Enes Kanter. That's, there's no value for that. The Rockets found a way to make him not only valuable on offense, but valuable on defense. And it's not like he shoots threes. There's always this kind of evolution, but in the playoffs, there's still always going to be a specific type of player that has the most success, and that's the guy with the least number of things you can take away. You take away Brunson going to his left, he can go right. You take away the three-pointer, he can hit the mid-range. You pack the paint, he can hit the mid-range. You collapse on him, he can make the pass. And he might not be as great at those things as a guy like LeBron or, quote unquote, the 1A, and maybe that'll be a reality, but I don't think it'll be because of his height as much as it's just a very high bar. But there's a reason why you look at all of the guys we talk about as in that pantheon. You couldn't even a guy like Shaq, who was singularly dominant at just bullying you to the rim and getting a dunk. He had touch. He had very good passing ability. That's probably the most underrated part of his game. He could control the ball without turning it over. I think that is kind of what separates Brunson in many ways from the standard, dynamic guard. Will we see Shamet next game and Deuce look like quickly in his first game was the Cavs? I think we'll see Shamet. Shamet was a little sped up. I think the Knicks in that first half were a little sped up by the ball pressure from the Pistons. There were multiple players, Deuce and Shamet, I think, namely among them. But Shamet is a vet. He played in the finals with on that Suns team. He can give you, and they're going to need 3-pointers. And Deuce looking like quickly. He didn't have a great game. He also had some big-time performances last playoffs. I don't think Tibbs lacks trust in him, or at least not enough to glue him to the bench. And Deuce was impactful on defense. He had some key turnovers that he forced. And that's why Quickly wasn't benched. Even when he struggled to shoot, the impact on defense was still there. And I think Deuce is physically more capable than quickly in many ways. And I think this is a series where you need that, where you need someone who can, maybe he's not going to lock up KAT, but he can switch on to him at times. He can get physical. He can get over screens, which clearly Bickerstaff made clear he was going to, force the Knicks to get over screens and communicate. The Knicks need to generate. Yeah, and I think this is the key point. And this is a little bit of the philosophical debate. Like, why are the Knicks not shooting as many threes? Yeah, I've talked about this with Schwinn. Is it that they're not generating threes, right? I think DJ from Knicks Film School has pointed out that, Randall was responsible. Like, the 3-point volume for Brunson, especially on catch and shoots, has gone down since Randall got hurt really last year. And KAT is a very good passer. I mean, KAT had that insane, he was falling down and threw it over his head. That was pretty insane improvisation and turned into a good pass. But is it generating, or is it just they have fewer fucking guys? I think it's a little bit of both, but I do agree with David that you generate threes when you stress the defense. Defenses don't want to give up threes. So when they have to make those choices and you put them in those situations, that's when they happen. And the best way, I do think, the best way is to put your two best players in the most efficient play, or the bread and butter play in basketball, where they're both adept, and cook. And it is a little baffling, whatever the shortcomings might be there. It's like in football, you have a quarterback who can run. You don't run read option. Well, he's not good at reading the defensive end. You got to figure that out, though. And I don't even think this is that big an issue. It's just some of their chemistry, and it might be something we see more of next season, with a full off season for them to prepare. I know no one wants to hear that. It sounds like an excuse, but if KAT and Brunson spend the summer together, maybe they develop that chemistry a little bit more. I do agree with David that you still should be using it now. If nothing else, for the same reason, you're getting those reps, right? Thoughts on Isaiah Stewart's apparent knee injury and ongoing effect? Yeah, I mean, if it's not so serious that he can't play, that guy is a dog. He is going to cause problems. But, he's facing a tough matchup in Karl Anthony Towns, and any advantage the Knicks get is going to help. But he's going to be a factor in this series. He only took, I think, 2 or 3 3-pointers tonight. I actually don't think he took any at all. I think that he's still going to be a factor. So, thoughts on Mikal Bridges' performance in his first playoff game for the panel and P? It wasn't great. On defense, he struggled with Harris, and he struggled a little bit with KAT. I thought at the end he had a really nice possession on Harris, where Harris was really trying to bully him in the post, and he didn't give up any ground. And I think he forced either an air ball or a really bad miss. And those are the kinds of things we've seen him struggle with Tatum, right? Tatum would just overpower him. Yeah, it's a tough fadeaway, but he's not really making the guy uncomfortable. I thought that he acquitted himself better in that second half, but he's got to be more involved in offense, and maybe that's something that takes an offseason to figure out, especially with so many new pieces. Maybe it's him being more aggressive, but it needs to happen not just because of the cost to get him, but because that version of the players, they need some kind of a jump to really jump past the Celtics. Maybe the 2nd April will do that for them. But there's going to be more teams. Oklahoma City's not going anywhere. Cleveland is very stable and very talented. Other teams are creeping up from behind, right? Maybe KAT takes a leap next year. Indiana's not going anywhere. So, that is a big inflection point that they need to figure out how that happens. But, I wouldn't let him off the hook necessarily. I think he's capable of much more impact than he had today. And I said this series is a referendum, not like a final referendum on Tibbs, but it is going to be something that he's judged on very, scrutinized in a way that he was in the past. That absolutely holds true for Mikal Bridges, holds true for KAT as well, but especially Bridges, not just because of the cost, but he has one more year left on his contract. So they need to make some kind of decision on him this year in the offseason. And him, fading in and out of games, not being able to really, a guy like Bridges, if you're not getting shots up, or if they're taking you out of the offense, you have to be able to impact the game on defense. It's something that a guy like Klay Thompson, whose shots may come and go, was adept at. I'm not saying Bridges is as good as Klay Thompson as a shooter. He's absolutely capable of having that level of impact as a defender. And, he's not set up the best way. Klay got to play with Draymond, but he gets to play with OG. And you're valued the way you are because of belief that you can do that. And you just want him to have more impact than he did tonight. Trade Tibbs to OKC for Ihart. I think this was in the context of what we were talking about with the versatility. Maybe. But this is where the Knicks are. Until someone has a data-supported alternate path, Hart and Cal minutes going down, so all three wings aren't playing together, just works. Yeah, I mean, it's also you don't have a reliable bench wing, right? This is so Jeff Rasmussen has talked about this with why, even before the season, why he wanted to start. First it was Dante, but then Deuce after the KAT trade over Hart. And he said, I think he's intellectually honest about this part, that I think he's generally an intellectually honest person. He is an intellectually honest person. But I'm saying I think that I disagree with him on some things. But a very good point he made is it's not just about the threes. It's about if you're playing all three of your really only playable wings together. Precious isn't a wing. You don't trust Dadier. Shamit, we know, has his limitations. You can give yourself a lot more flexibility if you stagger them a little bit more. And especially the way Tibbs runs his rotations, if you have all three of them in the starting lineup, not only are they maybe not the best fit right now, but it doesn't take advantage of all their strengths. Right? Hart really excels when he can run that bench lineup. Mikal tends to be more energized when he can be more of a focal point on the offense. And OG can fit pretty much anywhere, but I do agree that staggering them can, one, help them cover up for others more than needing to be seamless. I think the other part of it is that you have these you have one great defensive wing, one who has at his ceiling the capable of being a great defensive wing, another guy who's capable of being a great team defender in Hart. You play them together, they can make up for Brunson and KAT. I don't think it's quite worked out that way, because I think what each of them, including Hart, better at is covering up for others' shortcomings. So use them in that way. Use Hart to cover up for the fact that your bench lineups might not have great rebounding or playmaking. Use Bridges to make up for the fact that your bench lineups may not have as much scoring or shot making, and they might have to settle for some of those mid-range shots. He excels at. Use OG as a Swiss Army knife. He can play the 4. We've never seen OG at the 5, really. We've seen it very rarely when there's no other option. Use him as a Swiss Army knife. Use him like Draymond Green a little bit more, right? Maybe not on offense, but if you have, I think I'll go back to football. In football, a lot of these, Charles Woodson was a lockdown corner. He won Defensive Player of the Year when he moved to safety. They used him in nickel. They use them outside. They use them all over the place. And that's why, if someone has a chance, usually at the top of the draft, between an elite corner or an elite defensive end, there's real conversations about, is Abdul Carter better than Hunter? And at their peer position, maybe not, but a defensive end has a ripple impact. Can you get that ripple impact out of guys? That's where I think playing them all together just hasn't manifested that way. And I think, separating them a little bit more would have kind of an amplifier effect on the team. I'm going to get to this super chat. Thank you, Huck Frazier, for the support. Reduce Hart and Cal minutes. So all three wings aren't playing together, shift the minutes to Mitch, Cam, Deuce, and Sham, depending on who is playing well. Yeah, I think versatility, and that seems to be a little bit of, it's not just in the lineups, but it's also because he plays them so long together. There's trade-offs, right? I think you play one lineup together, they can get some rhythm. Guys aren't constantly worried about, we've had that critique, right? That if Grimes said that, right? That if I miss a shot, I feel I'm gonna get pulled, or I have a 1,000-pound weight on my chest. So there is a trade-off, but at the same time, when you don't have like one, like you don't have the kind of all-in, you don't have a death lineup in the same way, right? Or you don't have a lineup that's like, this is the lineup that's just going to like the starting lineup hasn't played that well, even though that probably is, those are the best five. Like, I don't think Deuce is ultimately a better player than Hart. And I don't think any of the backups are better players than anyone who starts. But the whole point is you mix and match, and you, in the regular season, you can beat more teams, but you also, by building that rhythm, you're able to set yourself up, because you're going to have to win four. I mean, logically, look at it this year, right? You got to beat this like hardcore, a version of an early Tibbs team, really, with the Knicks. Pistons team that plays its ass off, that's limited offensively, but knows its identity and is going to make every minute for you hell. You're going to have to next round most likely play a Boston team that goes 5 out, that can switch everything. You're going to need a different strategy for that. You beat them, you're going to play these two bigs in Cleveland who have a bunch of shooters around them and two dynamic guards. And you go to the finals, you're going to play OKC, most likely. Or you might have to, which is elite defensive team that can switch everything, that can trap, that can beat you a million different ways on defense, and has this 6'6" guard who can score at 3 levels, draw a ton of fouls, get to the rim, make any shot. Or Luka and LeBron, which requires its own different strategy, right? You need to be ready for all of it. And that's the benefit of leaning into that versatility. There are times, we've talked about this on Pod Strickland, what made Tibbs so great, and I do think he has been one of the greatest coaches for the Knicks. I can simultaneously hold that opinion and think that maybe they will need to move in a different direction to win a title or to get to that level. But he has been one of the greatest coaches in Knicks history because they needed an identity when he joined. What was the identity, right? You had just come off a season where you forced Randall into this role where he was the main guy. That didn't work. You scaled him back. You were using Elfrid Payton to bridge that with his playmaking a little bit. RJ was a little bit lost his first season. So he gives us identity. We have Mitchell Robinson. We have Noel. We're going to fight and rebound and be a great defensive team. And we're going to reduce turnovers and just rely on Randall to be our fail safe, right, on offense. That gave them an identity, and they built from that, right? They leaned into defense and rebounding. They get a guy like Brunson who helped that offensive rebounding in a way, because even when he's shooting these floaters, he's drawing the attention of the big, which helps Mitchell Robinson just move out of the way, or get the offensive rebound. But ultimately, like, there's a trade-off between having a defined identity and being able to attack in different ways. And that's, I think, one of the toughest things probably in getting to that level and making that leap. This is the toughest leap the Knicks are trying to make. We probably don't appreciate how tough it was of a leap to get from where we were before Rose and Tibbs came on, kind of the laughing stock of the league, to being the 3rd seed, 2nd seed, perennially making the playoffs. We don't appreciate that leap, but this one is harder. Because especially in the area of the second apron, you can't just stack stars. You can't just lean on one way of winning. You have to be flexible and adaptable, and that's going to be the test, because that's the kind of roster they've built. I think Rose and company knows this, and they know that, like, you need to be able to play KAT at the 4 and the 5. You need to be able to deploy Bridges and OG sometimes at the point of attack. You ideally also want them to be able to play off ball sometimes. Sometimes teams are going to take away the 3, and you need Bridges to get into the paint and take mid-range shots. Sometimes they're going to only give you somewhat open 3s, but you have to be more aggressive. Maybe Deuce is a better option than some of those guys. They've built a roster that can do those things. And I think it's fair to say Tibbs hasn't leaned into that. And Wings are the best way to bring that up because wings are the versatile position, right? That's why we create like the 5 positions. They're point guards, they're centers, they're very much their own thing. It's those 2, 3, 4 where we have this new word, or not new, but we have this word that represents the blend, right? Like football, you don't just have cornerback, safety, you have defensive backs who can play multiple positions. And the more you can do those things, whether it's Vic Fangio or Jesse Minter in the NFL, these defenses have guys, they call it the amoeba defense. It's constantly shifting. But it's tough to do both at the same time. I think the Knicks have evolved past they have an identity, right? They have a superstar. They have a second star. They have guys around them. They know what they can be, but they need to be able to attack in different ways. And the next step is going to be that. And they did have to adapt today. And, it's only Detroit. It's only game 1. It's at home. There were encouraging signs. Probably not enough to change their fate against Boston. But, we can go to sleep tonight cautiously optimistic. And maybe that's the best way to live life. So, anyway, I'm going to get out of here as well. Thanks for joining. Always great to hang out with you guys. And go Knicks.